Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Women Bhattacharya. Coming up in the next hour. Israeli government approves first phase of Trump's Gaza peace plan, a ceasefire and release of Israeli hostages and Palestinian prisoners to follow. US federal judge orders temporary halt to President Donald Trump's deployment of hundreds of National Guard troops in Chicago. Peru's Congress leader Jose Herry becomes president of the South American country. He leads a transitional government after lawmakers vote to remove President Dina Bularte. Opener Yashasvi Jaiswal smashes a stunning century as India pile on runs against a hapless West Indies on day one of the second test in New Delhi. After months of intense fighting and failed negotiations, a major breakthrough was achieved in the Gaza conflict, as Israeli government has approved the first phase of a Gaza deal, which will lead to a ceasefire and release of hostages. More in this report.
Celebrations erupted on both sides as Israel and Hamas reached a landmark agreement to end hostilities in Gaza. The deal calls for a ceasefire, a partial Israeli withdrawal, and the release of hostages by Hamas in exchange for Palestinian prisoners held by Israel. The agreement follows indirect talks in Egypt's Sharm el-Sheikh and forms part of US President Donald Trump's initiative to end the conflict. Israel's government ratified a ceasefire with Hamas on Friday, clearing the way to suspend hostilities in Gaza within 24 hours. The exchange will take place within 72 hours of the implementation of the agreement. Hamas will exchange 20 living hostages for 2,000 Palestinian prisoners as part of the first phase of a deal to end the conflict in Gaza. The ceasefire in Gaza is expected to take effect early on Saturday. The agreement is just the first phase of US President Donald Trump's 20-point peace plan, and there are still a number of sticking points to work out. Speaking during a cabinet meeting at the White House, Trump said hostages held by Hamas in Gaza should be released on Monday or Tuesday.
We ended the war in Gaza and really, on a much bigger basis, created peace. And I think it's going to be a lasting peace, hopefully an everlasting peace. Peace in the Middle East. We secured the release of all of the remaining hostages, and they should be released on Monday or Tuesday.
Following the signing, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu held an emotional phone call with President Trump, who is expected to visit Jerusalem on Sunday. Netanyahu expressed gratitude for Trump's global leadership in facilitating the deal. World leaders from France, UK, Turkey, the European Union, and others also welcomed the agreement, hailing it as a crucial step toward peace and the safe release of hostages in Gaza.
I welcome the announcement last night of an agreement to secure a ceasefire and hostage release in Gaza, based on the proposal put forward by President Donald J. Trump. And I commend the diplomatic efforts of the United States, Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey in brokering the desperately needed breakthrough. We have all waited far too long for this moment. Now we must make it truly count. I urge all parties to fully abide by the terms of the agreement and to fully embrace the opportunities it presents.
The world is watching closely as the ceasefire moves towards implementation. If it holds, it could bring long-awaited relief to millions affected by the conflict and possibly set the stage for broader peace talks in the West Asia region. Bureau Report, DD India.
Let's now take a look at what is expected to happen in this first phase. A ceasefire in Gaza is expected to take effect early on Saturday, 24 hours after the deal was approved by the Israeli government. Second, according to officials, Israeli troops will withdraw to a line giving it control of 53% of the Gaza Strip. This is the first of 3 withdrawal stages in Trump's plan. Thirdly, the release of Israeli hostages alive and dead being held by Hamas will begin, followed by Israel's release of Palestinian prisoners serving life sentences in Israeli jails as well as detainees from Gaza. And lastly, the US is moving up to 200 troops already based in the West Asian region to Israel to coordinate a multinational force which will monitor the ceasefire. Following the announcement, Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke to US President Donald Trump and congratulated him on the success of the historic Gaza peace plan. PM Modi wrote on X, and I quote, "Spoke to my friend President Trump and congratulated him on the success of the historic Gaza peace plan. Also reviewed the good progress achieved in trade negotiations, agreed to stay in close touch over the coming weeks." Prime Minister Narendra Modi also called Israeli counterpart Netanyahu to congratulate him. He said, and I quote, "We welcome the agreement on the release of hostages and enhanced humanitarian assistance to the people of Gaza, reaffirmed that terrorism in any form or manifestation is unacceptable anywhere in the world." And joining us now for perspective is Ambassador Anil Kumar Trigunayat, the former Indian ambassador. He's joining us from Gurugram. Ambassador Trigunayat, such a pleasure to have you on DD India. So part 1 of Trump's Gaza plan is being rolled out. Do you see this bringing lasting peace? What are the hurdles that still remain to your mind?
Well, there are too many slips between the cup and the lip, as they say. But for the time being, it is a welcome development. And as you know, the Prime Minister has also himself congratulated both President Trump as well as Prime Minister Netanyahu. So it is a good thing because it has been causing mayhem and a lot of problems in the region. It was keeping the region unstable. We have seen several unanticipated incidents like attack in Qatar or Iran-Israel war. Those were almost on the verge of trying to engulf the whole region. So it had a much wider, apart from the plight of the Palestinians, as well as the problem that the hostages had. They also suffered for nearly 2 years in various tunnels or wherever they were kept by Hamas. So hopefully this will be the first stage where some kind of semblance of normalcy will arrive and the humanitarian assistance will reach the people of Gaza who have suffered a great deal and have been displaced frequently. And there will be, of course, the exchanges at 1 to 10 kind of a scenario, which always used to happen earlier. So it is something that is good in a way. But I must say that what kind of a force that is going to come in, what will happen to that, what will happen to the overall two-state solution, I mean, eventually, that is very important. Because if that is not addressed, in my view, we are eventually going to see the repeat of the same again. And of course, they want to see the Hamas disarmed. Apparently, Hamas wants to keep some arms which have been discussed, not to counter, but to protect themselves. So we'll have to see how it eventually on ground plays out. Of course, we will see the exchange of prisoners and all that in the first phase. But the second phase is equally important because last time, if you remember, with the intervention of President Trump, this same kind of a ceasefire had been agreed. After the first phase, there was no second phase. So we'll have to see eventually and keep the fingers crossed.
Absolutely. Let's take forward this by picking up the points that you had mentioned. As far as the way forward is concerned, Trump says Gaza is going to be slowly redone. And that's, of course, a reference to plans to rebuild it. We also know that Western and Arab countries have met in Paris to discuss international peacekeeping force and reconstruction assistance for Gaza once the fighting stops. We also told our viewers about how there is the force in West Asia, the US soldiers who could be deployed there for monitoring the implementation of the ceasefire. So will the future of Gaza be the much bigger challenge here?
Well, I think that if the Palestinians are completely kept out of this whole idiom that is being created, then I'm quite sure that there are going to be problems. But if there is a plan eventually to incorporate the Palestinians, not the Hamas, in governance of their own territories, then I guess there could be some kind of a peace. But for that, the Israeli Prime Minister and the Israelis have to agree to that. And as of now, there is no scope for the Palestinians to be partaking in it. Of course, Palestinian Authority has supported this plan because they want the peace and they want the decimation of Hamas, like the rest of the Arab world wants it also. So, but we'll have to see. As I said, is Gaza has been ruled for since 2006 by the Hamas, and whether they've been completely decimated, not destroyed, we know, and what will be their take going forward, and who are the people who are going to be released by the Israelis in exchange. That will also provide the new kind of a leadership for Palestinians or for the Gaza administration.
Yes, on the two-state solution that you had mentioned, we know that Israel is dead opposed to that solution. But at the same time, 142 countries have backed it. What's your sense of where this is going?
Well, at the moment, it looks it's going nowhere except on the paper. Because if Israel is not agreeable to the two-state solution, it is not coming up with any other solution. This is the problem. I mean, there has to be some kind of a solution for such a large number of people who basically were entitled to their own state by the UN Security Council Resolution 181. And if you see the Saudi statement today, it also talks of the Arab Peace Plan that was agreed way before in 2002, and which also talks about the separate state, the satellites, removal of settlements, talks of East Jerusalem as the capital. Now, those things will be physically very, very difficult to achieve. But there has to be some kind of a formula whereby the Palestinians and the Israelis can live in peace side by side and do their own thing. And if they can be friends, nothing like it.
Also, Ambassador, how do you see India's position in the conflict, particularly since the October 7 attacks 2 years ago? Because would you say that there has been a nuancing of position or no?
Well, I think that the most important thing as far as India is concerned, we don't recognize Hamas in the first place. We don't have any dealings with them. Secondly, we are dead against, we condemn the terrorism, and Prime Minister Modi himself immediately tweeted condemning these October 7 terror attacks. And we have supported Israel as far as fight against terror is concerned. But at the same time, India has been very, very concerned for the stoppage of humanitarian supplies, for the kind of mayhem that has been going on, the killings of people, carpet bombing and all that has been going on in Gaza. So obviously we are very much concerned. We have provided the humanitarian assistance, and we have we've been in touch with the Israelis as well as the Palestinians that whatever role India can play, we'll be very happy to do so. But at the same time, this is very important that this particular conflict, which is the mother of all conflicts in the West Asia region, must be addressed.
Also, Ambassador, to sum it up, there's always a fear of going one step forward and two steps backward on the Israel-Gaza conflict resolution. We also know about the far-right members of Netanyahu's coalition. They've long been opposed to any deal with Gaza. Is it a plan whose time has come? And what really happens to Trump's Rivera, the Gaza Rivera plan that he had mooted, which got no support from the region except from Israel?
Well, unfortunately, the Western countries generally do not understand that Palestine is a very emotional issue for the Palestinians and equally for the Israelis. For them, there was a plan for, land for peace formula and all that. But those are something that were not granted. And those were not even attempted by any of the sides sincerely. So therefore, I believe that there is sincerity of purpose that has been missing all along. There have been a lot of talk, a lot of paperwork, a lot of statements, but on the ground, nothing much has happened. But hopefully, this time round, there will be a little more resolve to essentially find a two-state solution if they can. And Mr. Netanyahu will also have to see whether this security-ridden approach is the most effective. It has not proved effective so far. Or is it something that you would like to coexist with them and make them see reason to desist from any kind of terror attacks or extremism coming from the Palestinian side?
Towards the end, even Trump's critics can't deny him credit for this one, isn't it?
we must give credit, and I think Prime Minister Modi himself has given the credit to President Trump, congratulated him. And, I have always maintained that President Trump generally loves tariff war, but he hates the real wars.
Absolutely. Well, we'll leave it at that. We are
Thank
also standing by to know who the Nobel Peace Prize winner is going to be. That will be known in some hours from now. Well, thank you, Ambassador, for joining us. Let's take a break at this point in time. Coming up on the other side, US denies reports of supplying new advanced medium-range air-to-air missiles to Pakistan. And global buzz builds ahead of Nobel Peace Prize announcement.
Construction isn't just about steel and concrete. It can also be about restoring a hillside or creating homes that can protect both us and our planet.
This wattle and daub technique is called skin and bone of a structure. So here we have used bamboos cut into strips and weaved together as made as a panel. In that cap we fill it with mud and make it as a skin for it.
The trucks would just come by, dump the illegal waste and leave. Then we got some people to help and our Anand One urban forest team came into existence. Together we must have cleared about 30 to 40 tons of garbage out of this place.
One of the reasons for this structure that we have created here is to try and see if we can halt or reduce the rate of erosion. This is like a natural embankment for the forest land.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. The United States on Friday denied any delivery of the advanced medium-range air-to-air missiles to Pakistan, contrary to what was reported by multiple media outlets on Tuesday. In a statement, the American Embassy in India said that the new contract with Pakistan is meant for certain sustainment items and does not include any new deliveries of the said missiles, debunking media reports as false. The statement reads, on September 30, 2025, the Department of War released a list of standard contract announcements which refer to an amendment to an existing foreign military sales contract for sustainment and spares for several countries, including Pakistan. The administration would like to emphasize that contrary to false media reports, no part of this referenced contract modification is for deliveries of new advanced medium-range air-to-air missiles or AMRAAMs to Pakistan. The US Embassy's statement appears to directly counter these claims, stressing that the contract is purely intended to support existing systems rather than enhance them. The clarification underscores Washington's awareness of perceptions that it could be influencing regional military balances. A US judge temporarily halted Trump's deployment of hundreds of National Guard troops in Chicago and other states 5 days after another US judge blocked a similar deployment in Portland, Oregon. Trump's administration has argued the troops are necessary to protect immigration agents and facilities in America's third largest city, falsely depicting it as a war zone. But local Democratic officials have said police and other law enforcement are perfectly sufficient, while arguing that Trump is purposefully provoking protests with its heavy-handed operations. Putting an obligation on the move, the district judge April Perry said that permitting Guard troops in the state would only add fuel to the fire after hearing more than 2 hours of arguments from lawyers for the US government and the state of Illinois, which sued the Trump administration over the deployment.
Herry did a very careful job of weighing the evidence, weighing the credibility of the evidence and those declarations that served as the testimony to be considered as to whether or not the President of the United States could and should federalize and deploy the National Guard into our great city and our great state. And I think after doing so, she made the correct decision to enter a temporary restraining order.
The U.S. imposed sanctions on about 100 individuals, entities and vessels, including a Chinese independent refinery and terminal that helped Iran's oil and petrochemicals trade. The United States believes Iran's oil networks help Tehran fund its nuclear and missile programs and support militant proxies throughout the Middle East. Iran says its nuclear program is for peaceful purposes. U.S. Treasury says it was the fourth round of sanctions in which the administration targeted China-based refineries that continue to purchase Iranian oil. Meanwhile, China said on Friday it would impose special port fees on ships operated by and built in the United States after Washington announced charges for Chinese-linked ships in April. Incremental fees will be collected at Chinese ports from the 14th of October. Ukrainian officials said on Friday that a Russian attack on central Kyiv targeting energy sites led to power cuts in several parts of the capital. Ukraine further added that the strikes also triggered fire at a high-rise apartment building. Timur Kachenko, head of Kyiv's military administration, said both drones and missiles had been deployed in the post-midnight assault on the capital. Kyiv Mayor Vitaly Klitschko said that 12 people had been injured, with 8 of them taken to hospital. French President Emmanuel Macron has invited the heads of most of France's political parties, excluding the far right and the hard left, for a meeting at the Élysée Friday afternoon as he searches for his 6th prime minister in under 2 years. Macron's office had said late on Wednesday he would appoint a new prime minister within 48 hours. After outgoing Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu held 2 days of talks to seek a way out of France's worst political crisis in decades. Peru gets a new interim president after lawmakers in a shocking vote removed Dina Bularte. Congress leader Jose Herry has taken over as interim president until elections in April 2026. Bularte, whose term since 2022 has been marked by protests and accusations of failing to stem crime, refused to appear before Congress for the overnight hearing. An overwhelming majority of 118 out of 122 lawmakers voted for her impeachment, removing her from presidency. An earthquake of magnitude 7.5 struck offshore in the southern Philippines on Friday, killing at least 2 people. Authorities warned of aftershocks and potential damage, urging coastal communities to evacuate. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center initially feared 1 to 3 meter waves, later declaring the threat over. Eyewitnesses reported shaking buildings, toppled furniture and fleeing residents. The quake was among the strongest in recent years to hit the Philippines, which sits on the Pacific Ring of Fire and experiences more than 800 quakes each year. Sri Lanka's main opposition party, the Samagi Jana Balawegaya, has decided to launch a joint political program with the United Nations Party, United National Party in fact, under SJB's leadership and direction. The SJB Working Committee, which met this week, unanimously endorsed the proposal in what party officials described as a historic decision. Grassroots members have welcomed the move. Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa talked about the meeting and the joint political program.
බලවේගය අද දින කෘත්‍යාධිකාරී මණ්ඩල රැස්වීමේදීත් ඊට පෙර කළමනාකරන කමිටු රැස්වීම් දෙකකදීත් ඒකමතික තීන්දුවකට එළඹුණා. එනම් සමගි ජන බලවේගයේ නායකත්වයෙන් මූලිකත්වයෙන් සහ මෙහෙයවීමෙන් එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයත් සමග පොදු වැඩපිළිවෙලකට.
October 10th is observed as World Mental Health Day to encourage global mental health education, awareness and advocacy against social stigma. Despite increased awareness, many still shy away from seeking help due to fear of judgment or stigma. Preeti Kaur in the report ahead explores how mental health is integral to an individual's overall health.
Mental health is a state of mental well-being that enables people to think, feel and behave. It is an integral component of health and well-being that underpins our individual and collective abilities to make decisions, build relationships and shape the world we live in. Mental health is more than the absence of mental disorders. Mental illness, something that people have faced in some point of their lives knowingly or unknowingly, accounts for more than 12% of global disorders. It can affect a person in countless ways. The symptoms are diverse and the experience is deeply personal. Some of the conditions include anxiety disorders, depression, bipolar disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, schizophrenia, eating disorders, disruptive behavior and dissocial disorders, neurodevelopmental disorders. While some may experience persistent feelings of sadness or anxiety, others might struggle with mood swings, lack of focus, or even physical symptoms like fatigue or restlessness. It can affect anyone, regardless of background, age, or status. World Mental Health Day, observed every year on 10th of October, serves as a powerful reminder that there is no health without mental health. The theme this year, Mental Health in Humanitarian Emergencies, focuses on the urgent need to support the mental health and psychosocial needs of people affected by humanitarian emergencies. Crises such as natural disasters, conflicts, and public health emergencies cause emotional distress, with 1 in 5 individuals experiencing a mental health condition. However, there is hope. Staying mentally and emotionally healthy is the key to not just surviving, but thriving. The path to healing starts with a conversation. If you or someone you know is struggling, don't hesitate to talk about it. Seek support, share your feelings, and when necessary, consult a mental health professional. In a world where we take care of everything, our homes, our jobs, our bodies, it is time we care just as much for our minds as well. After all, a healthy mind is the heartbeat of a healthy life. Preeti Kaur, DD India.
Prime Minister Modi hailed all those working in the field of mental health and helping others heal and find happiness. Posting on X, PM said, and I quote, "World Mental Health Day serves as a powerful reminder that mental health is a fundamental part of our overall well-being. In a fast-paced world, this day underscores the importance of reflecting and extending compassion to others. Let us also work collectively to create environments where conversations around mental health become more mainstream. My compliments to all those working in this field and helping others heal and find happiness." Anticipation is growing and people around the world are taking bets on who will be awarded this year's Nobel Peace Prize. One of the most prestigious awards of its kind in the world, the Nobel Peace Prize is one of 5 created by Swedish industrialist Alfred Nobel. Here's what to know ahead of this year's announcement, the secretive process and peculiar past of Nobel Peace Prize.
Noise of conflict, the rush of history, and the weight of division. There is a light that refuses to fade. A light kindled not by power, but by principle. Not by force, but by faith in humanity. This is the story of a prize that does not honor the end of war, but the beginning of courage. The Nobel Peace Prize, where hope becomes history. This remarkable journey began with a single act of conscience, Alfred Nobel's will, signed on November 27, 1895 in Paris. In his final testament, he directed that the bulk of his vast fortune be used to honor those who shall have conferred the greatest benefit to humankind. Among the 5 prizes he established, one stood apart in purpose and spirit. The Nobel Peace Prize, awarded to those who have done the most or the best work for fraternity between nations, for the abolition or reduction of standing armies, and for the promotion of peace congresses. The prize is selected by the Norwegian Nobel Committee, a 5-member body appointed by the Norwegian Parliament. Since its inception in 1901, the Nobel Peace Prize has been awarded 105 times to 139 laureates, 92 individuals and 28 organizations as of 2024. recognizing exceptional efforts in peace building, human rights, and disarmament. Women have received the prize 19 times, with Bertha von Suttner becoming the first female laureate in 1905 for her pioneering peace advocacy, and Malala Yousafzai, the youngest, honored in 2014 at the age of 17 for her courageous fight for girls' education under Taliban rule. The prize was awarded to Henry Dunant in 1901 for co-founding the International Committee of the Red Cross, and to Martin Luther King Jr. in 1964 for his non-violent civil rights leadership. Mother Teresa was recognized in 1979 for her humanitarian service in Kolkata, while Nelson Mandela and F.W. de Klerk jointly received it in 1993 for ending apartheid in South Africa. In 2001, Kofi Annan and the United Nations were...
Well, the 2025 Nobel Peace Prize is being announced. Let's go across.
Growing darkness. The Norwegian Nobel Committee has decided to award the Nobel Peace Prize for 2025 to Maria Corina Machado. She is receiving the Nobel Peace Prize for her tireless work promoting democratic rights for the people of Venezuela, and for her struggle to achieve a just and peaceful transition from dictatorship to democracy. As the leader of the democratic forces in Venezuela, Maria Corina Machado is one of the most extraordinary examples of civilian courage in Latin America in recent times. Ms. Machado has been a key unifying figure in a political opposition that was once deeply divided, an opposition that found common ground in the demand for free election and representative government. This is precisely what lies at the heart of democracy: our shared willingness to defend the principles of popular rule, even though we disagree. At a time when democracy is under threat, it is more important than ever to defend this common ground. Venezuela has evolved from a relatively democratic and prosperous country to a brutal and authoritarian state that is now suffering a humanitarian and economic crisis. Most Venezuelans live in deep poverty, even as the few at the top enrich themselves. The violent machinery of the state is directed against its own population. Nearly 8 million people have left the country. The opposition has been systematically suppressed by means of election rigging, legal prosecution, and imprisonment. Venezuela's authoritarian regime makes political work extremely dangerous. As the founder of Sumate, an organization devoted to democratic development, Ms. Machado stood up for free and fair elections more than 20 years ago. As she said, it was a choice of ballots over bullets. In political office and in her service to organizations since then, Ms. Machado has spoken out for judicial independence, human rights, and popular representation. She has spent years working for the freedom of the Venezuelan people. Ahead of the election of 2024, Ms. Machado was the opposition's presidential candidate, but the regime blocked her candidacy. She then backed the representative of a different party, Edmundo González Urrutia, in the election. Hundreds of thousands of volunteers mobilized across political divides. They were trained as election observers to ensure a transparent and fair election. Despite the risk of harassment, arrest, and torture, citizens across the country held watch over the polling stations. They made sure the final tallies were documented before the regime could destroy ballots and lie about the outcome. The efforts of the collective opposition, both before and during the election, were innovative and brave, peaceful and democratic. The opposition received international support when its leaders publicized the vote counts that had been collected from the country's election districts, showing that the opposition had won by a clear margin. But the regime refused to accept the election result and clung to power. Democracy is a precondition for lasting peace. However, we live in a world where democracy is in retreat, where more and more authoritarian regimes are challenging norms and resorting to violence. The Venezuelan regime's rigid hold on power and its repression of its population are not unique in the world. We see the same trends globally. Rule of law abused by those in control, free media silenced, critics imprisoned, and societies pushed towards authoritarian rule and militarization. In 2024, more elections were held than ever before, but fewer and fewer are free and fair. In its long history, the Norwegian Nobel Committee has honored brave women and men who have stood up to repression, who have carried the hope of freedom in prison cells, on the streets, and in public squares, and who have shown by their actions that peaceful resistance can change the world. In the past year, Ms. Machado has been forced to live in hiding. Despite serious threats against her life, she has remained in the country, a choice that has inspired millions. When authoritarians seize power, it is crucial to recognize courageous defenders of freedom who rise and resist. Democracy depends on people who refuse to stay silent, who dare to step forward despite grave risk, and who remind us that freedom must never be taken for granted, but must always be defended, with words, with courage, and with determination. Maria Corina Machado meets all the three criteria stated in Alfred Nobel's will for the selection of a Peace Prize. She has brought her country's opposition together. She has never wavered in resisting the militarization of Venezuelan society. She has been steadfast in her support for a peaceful transition to democracy. Maria Corina Machado has shown that the tools of democracy are also the tools of peace. She embodies the hope of a different future, one where the fundamental rights of citizens are protected and their voices are heard. In this future, people will finally be free to live in peace. Thank you. Questions?
Mr. Chair, the attention this year has been a bit further north. How are you as a committee going to make sure that the topic of this year's Peace Prize, democratic development in Venezuela, is highlighted in the days and weeks to come?
First and foremost, we hope to get your help, because the media obviously plays an important role in highlighting the humanitarian crisis in Venezuela, but first and foremost, the immense and impressive work of the opposition in that country. so that they will still have hope to fight for a future of freedom for their country.
Congratulations to Maria Corina Machado and the committee on the decision. But during the past months, US President Donald Trump has repeatedly said he deserves the Nobel Peace Prize and he'd like to have it. He even said that it would be an insult to the United States if he doesn't get it. What does as the chairman of the Nobel Peace Prize Committee, think of this, and how has this campaign-like activity by the president and his supporters, domestically and internationally, affected the deliberations and the thinking?
So Maria Corina Machado has been adjudged as the winner of the Nobel Peace Prize by the Norwegian Nobel Committee for 2025, and she is a prominent Venezuelan opposition leader who has waged a struggle against Maduro's dictatorship in Venezuela and fought for human rights as well as democracy. The Nobel Peace Prize consists of a diploma, a gold medal and a $1.2 million check. It is one of the most prestigious awards of its kind in the world. It is one of the 5 created by Swedish industrialist Alfred Nobel, and last year the honor had gone to Nihon Hidankyo, a group of survivors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings campaigning against nuclear weapons. The Nobel Peace Prize, like we've told you, consists of a check, diploma and gold medal. A number of Nobels have already been announced, like the Nobel on Chemistry, and the Economics Nobel is going to be announced on Monday. On to the other big story that we are tracking. Afghanistan Foreign Minister Amir Khan Muttaqi met India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar at Hyderabad House in New Delhi. The External Affairs Minister warmly welcomed Muttaqi and announced that India's technical mission in Kabul would now be upgraded to the status of an Indian embassy. He emphasized India's strong commitment to Afghanistan's sovereignty, territorial integrity and independence.
Is fully committed to the sovereignty, territorial integrity and independence of Afghanistan. Closer cooperation between us contributes to your national development as well as regional stability and resilience. To enhance that, I am pleased to announce today the upgrading of India's technical mission in Kabul to the status of Embassy of India.
The Foreign Minister of Afghanistan stated that India and Afghanistan should increase their mutual contact and exchanges.
I am happy today that I'm here in Delhi, and this visit will increase or strengthen the understanding between both countries and open a new chapter between these relations. We hope that Afghanistan and India, on an official level and in different areas, increase their engagements and exchanges. We hope that through talks and dialogue we can increase the level of understanding between us. We always sought good relations with India. We will not allow any group to threaten anyone else or use the territory of Afghanistan against others.
And now correspondent Amritpal Singh, who's tracking the story closely, is joining us. It's a groundbreaking first visit, Amrit, of the Taliban Foreign Minister of Afghanistan to India. Also a crucial moment as far as India's foreign policy is concerned. How major a strategic alignment is this one from the Indian perspective?
Well, this marks a major shift in India's, strategic alignment with Afghanistan. As the External Affairs Minister announced today, the upgradation of the technical mission in Kabul to the status of the Indian embassy in Kabul. That means if you establish an embassy in another country, you are effectively renewing diplomatic ties with that country. Though they have not said that in as many words, because the government of India still does not recognize Taliban as the legitimate government of Afghanistan after its takeover in 2021. First, the mission was shut down, then later what was called as a technical mission or a technical team was deputed there for developmental assistance and humanitarian aid. But now the very fact that the Indian External Affairs Minister hosts the Afghan Foreign Minister after he receives a UN Security Council waiver to travel to India at the Hyderabad house where heads of states and heads of government are hosted. It's a de facto recognition of the Taliban as the legitimate government. I again reiterate that the government of India has not said that in as many words, but it's the very fact that you're upgrading diplomatic ties means that you are in effect de facto recognizing that Taliban is here to stay. Unlike when they came into power in 1996 to 2001, when the government, the GOI or the government of India refused to engage with the Taliban. This has been based on Taliban's track record of not allowing Afghan territory to be used against India, and India continuously providing humanitarian assistance, tons of wheat during the last month's earthquake, being the first responder, reacting with material. Within hours, the earthquake struck them, and now the promise of more assistance. So it is a strategic realignment which is based in, upgrading ties, steeped in humanitarian aid, developmental assistance, and regional security, Manman.
Also, Amrit, Dr. Jaishankar spoke of the shared threat of terrorism that both countries face, how the regime in Kabul stood in solidarity with India after the Pahalgam terror attack, and how India is fully committed to what he called sovereignty, territorial integrity and independence of Afghanistan. Was this an indirect reference to Pakistan when it comes to terrorism and sovereignty concerns around the control and use of the Bagram air base, and how would Pakistan be viewing this visit?
Okay, you've asked two questions. Is it a veiled reference to Pakistan? Of course it is. Even as Maulvi Amir Khan Muttaqi was traveling to India, Pakistan bombs Kabul, apparently to attack TTP leaders hiding in Kabul. We have seen a deterioration of ties between Afghanistan and Pakistan. The Taliban, which came into power in 2021, though educated in the madrasas of Pakistan, is no longer controlled by the Pakistani generals or the Pakistani military. So there is a clear shift. India realizes that, Afghanistan has been used. Pakistan has been bombarding Afghanistan, the bordering areas, citing terror attacks, etc. on its military. But the fact remains that attacks emanate into Afghanistan from Pakistan. India suffers from the same malaise, the latest being Op Sindoor, preceded by Pahalgam. So clearly when the External Affairs Minister tells the visiting Foreign Minister of Afghanistan that, we've got shared concerns on terrorism, and he surely is referring to the terror factory which operates out of Pakistan, and asking for closer cooperation between Afghanistan and India. What India requires from Afghanistan really is to not allow its land to be used for terrorist activities or anti-India activities, especially in the valley. As in the past, we've seen Afghans come and fight when foreign nationals were found fighting in the valley, or even the Pakistani terrorists being trained in the plains of Afghanistan. So this no longer has been the trend. So clearly the foreign ministers, the external affairs ministers' reference was to there, to Pakistan. If you look at Muttaqi's statement, Muttaqi, in not as many words, but alludes to closer cooperation on terrorism and says that we share your concerns. In fact, external affairs minister noted that, after Pahalgam, when Muttaqi had called Dr. Jaishankar, he says your call and your sensitivity towards our concerns on terror and especially on cross-border terror are noteworthy. As far as the Bagram airbase is concerned, well, we saw this week itself when Minister Muttaqi had traveled to Moscow. India was part of the handful of countries which said that foreign interference should not be there because that's a threat to regional stability, clearly referring to or opposing the Americans' interest or Donald Trump's statement that he wants to regain control of the Bagram airbase. So clearly India does not want the Americans once again back in Afghanistan because Repeated attempts by the Americans have shown that it's led to regional instability than to any kind of regional security. Munmun?
We leave it at that. Amritpal Singh reporting on the visit of the Afghan foreign minister, also a Taliban foreign minister, to India. The third day of the India Mobile Congress 2025 is underway at Yashasvi in New Delhi. The Secretary of Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, S. Krishnan, participated in the event on Friday. In his address at the India AI session, S. Krishnan urged embracing AI rather than fearing it, emphasizing its role in achieving Viksit Bharat, or a developed India, by 2047 through inclusive, application-driven models.
With the least amount of resources, we are able to ensure availability of AI compute. The focus has been on people who will ultimately consume or who will need the AI compute for various purposes. Focus clearly on that, and in order to get more people included into that availability framework and accessibility framework, that is what has actually driven the way that the AI compute effort in India and under the India AI mission has been designed. And that is what a number of international agencies have also found very appealing as a model which can be used for the rest of the global south.
The Director General of the Indian Council for Cultural Relations, K. Nandini Singla, concluded a 3-day visit to the United Arab Emirates. She co-chaired the second joint steering committee meeting of the India-UAE Cultural Council alongside Noura Al-Kabi, Minister of State in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the UAE. During discussions, both sides explored several initiatives to enhance collaboration across multiple domains, including youth engagement, sports, yoga, and archival cooperation. Nandini Singla expressed gratitude to the UAE leadership for their care and warmth towards the Indian community in the Emirates. The International Union for Conservation of Nature and the International Renewable Energy Agency signed a memorandum of understanding during the IUCN World Conservation Congress in Abu Dhabi. The agreement, signed by IUCN and IRENA, establishes a framework for joint action to ensure the global shift to renewable energy reduces emissions while safeguarding biodiversity and supporting communities. The partnership aims to promote a rapid transition from fossil fuels to renewables while mitigating environmental impacts. IRENA's Deputy Director General Gauri Singh spoke about the collaboration, also emphasizing on achieving the global target of 11.2 terawatts of renewable energy by 2030.
The overall capacity globally has crossed 4,500 gigawatts, well on its way to the tripling of renewable energy target that was set in Dubai 2 years back. So it's it is a huge deployment that's taking place on the ground.
Niti Tax Policy Working Paper Series 2 report titled Towards India's Tax Transformation, Decriminalization and Trust-Based Governance was released by Niti Aayog's consultative group on tax policy on Friday in New Delhi. Based on the title, the paper Series 2 focused on easing India's tax laws to encourage voluntary compliance and foster trust between taxpayers and the government. Addressing the event, Niti Aayog CEO BVR Subramaniam said, recent legislative changes, particularly the Income Tax Act, indicate a major push towards these very goals.
It's a great moment of joy that we are rapidly releasing a report after another on the issue of tax. I mean, before December, we'll have over 12 reports coming out. The purpose is very simple. If India has to be Viksit Bharat, we need to have a tax system which is world class, which promotes compliance, which is easy, which is fair, which is just, and which promotes compliance with tax laws rather than makes it so complicated that people are not deterred but actually fail somewhere or the other, more unknowingly rather than knowingly. So I think that is the entire philosophy in which all these recommendations are coming.
Updates now from day one of the second test match between India and West Indies at the Arun Jaitley Stadium in New Delhi. Opener Yashasvi Jaiswal smashed his 7th test century in style as India crossed the 200-run mark. The other young left-hander at the crease, Sai Sudarshan, also smashed a half-century as West Indies' attack failed to break through the defences of Indian batters. The only highlight of the day for West Indies came in the first session when KL Rahul fell short of his 50 after being deceived by Jomel Varikan's spin. India lead the two-match series 1-0 and will be eyeing a clean sweep against an out-of-form West Indies side. That's it then in this edition of DD India News Hour, but do share your thoughts with us on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. This is Munmun Paracharya from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.